Conscious. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's nice. Dark path. Stop too.
Sorry, I had a minor issue.
God damn it, Leo.
Hey, it's not me. It's not me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it is.
Dan's judging you. His pit photo is like, can we start now? You're on.
Hi, I'm Dan Waters, writer of various comic books, and I'm on Splash Pages.
Is the one obvious thing.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Hey, happy Saturday, everybody. You are watching Splash Pages. My name is Leo. I'm the monkey behind the keyboard here. We have an amazing show scheduled for you as always, as you know, with our special Saturday shows. It's where we have, guests from across the pond and just, awesome stuff. But this one, actually, Carrie, you take it from here.
Hey, well, we have an amazing guest who I've read a ton of stuff by and am thrilled to have on to be able to talk about. Ratatoskert is not so thrilled about waking up, but he never is. So he's got some gin going today. We'll figure it out. I was hoping he'd just go with a mimosa, but squirrels. But yeah, so happy Saturday. I'm awake. This is unusual, but I'm getting used to it now. And to talk more about our guest, let's go see how Drew's doing.
Okay, God, both of you stop talking so loud. It's so bright. All right. Hey, everybody. No, it's Saturday. It's not Tuesday. You didn't sleep that long. But all jokes aside, everybody, we have a great guest here. Like Carrie said, we've all been reading some of his work. He's totally killing it in a lot of projects. And you've seen him on a lot. Currently, you've seen him working on Nightwing. He's also killing it on Batman Dark Patterns with the great Hayden Sherman. There are other things he's also done. Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives with his constant collaborator around V. I believe it's either the One Hand or the Six-Fingered Man. One of those he did, but it was together with Rams. I don't know. Point is, he's done a lot of good stuff. He's very badass. He's very chill. He's in New York right now, and he's joining us. Everybody, the one, the only, Dan Waters.
Woohoo!
Thanks for having me.
Yay!
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully
Yeah.
you're some of that nice New England weather. New York's not. I keep on forgetting.
God damn it, Leo. Just well, I listen. I do want to say this for our guest. I think that's probably the most succinct intro like ever. I was like, I've written stuff. You're on splash pages. I was like, he has written things and he is on splash pages. I was like, I was like, man, he gets right to the point. I love that. So
Writing is about clarity and cutting out adjectives.
Yeah, you did. I was like, okay, he's here. Well, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. And Carrie, do you want to start? Because there's so much our guest has written. I feel like we should just pick a pin and go. So, where do you want to start with, hon?
Can we go? Something I would really like to talk about is the Six Fingers and how that and the One Hand tied together, because that was such brilliant storytelling, and you and Ram had to be working together like very detailed into everything that was done, and like with the artwork and everything else. How did the idea come together? And did you guys had you planned it out, or were you selected to work together? Or
Yeah, no, it was very much our thing. It was one of those sort of things where we'd been circling together, just chatting about a number of sort of things and recommending each other sort of podcasts and books and things. And then at some point at 3 a.m. he just dropped me a message and he was like, "Oh, you stood up because I just had this idea, but it needs to be 2 stories and 2 books. And I know what one side of it is, but I think you need to write the other side and figure out what that is." So annoyingly, it was kind of his idea. But we then took 2 or 3 years before we actually started making it. Actually started putting a team together and making the thing. So it had a long gestation period, and we would talk about it a lot, and it sort of morphed into what it was over time. Which sometimes is nice to let something sit and grow before you put pen to paper, because in comics it's not often like that.
well, it's obvious you guys spent a lot of time on it, because the intricacies involved are just insane. I was getting so excited. I'm like, oh, I gotta do who does it next. Oh, which one's up next? Oh, like getting
Yeah, thank
everything
you. I
and
mean, it
figuring
was
out the
it was definitely
concept
sort of
was
like
just
a relay.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's if you guys haven't read it, it's a mind blowing, just kind of detective story and killer story, but there's a whole weird mythos and stuff kind of behind it, with a lot of not mythos, but more of a kind of it has a secret society type of feel, and there's all these clues and hints from murders and stuff before, but it has to do with hands, and people can travel through things, and I don't want to give it away too much, because you have to kind of alternate reading both of them so that you can keep up with both sides of the story. But it's beautiful and wonderfully done, and just very, very smart storytelling.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we didn't kind of want to go. We never want to go sort of formalism first, but there was definitely an idea there, that we wanted to tell 3 stories through 2 books, where if you read one book, you would get a full, satisfying story. If you read the other one, you would as well, without knowing the other one existed. But if you read both, you would get a lot more inference, and there's kind of a third detective story for the reader in between the books.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, sorry, go ahead, Leo.
Oh, no. I was
He was testing his mic.
No. I was gonna change the subject, but if you have more questions,
I had one. So you've worked with. So sorry, Leo and Carrie. You've worked with Ron quite a bit, and you guys are working on separate projects. But since I assume you're friends, you guys are reading each other's work? Are you like privately messaging, like, man, you're like, he's currently working on New Gods and it's great, and you're working on Dark Patterns, which is also great. Do you guys message each other like yeah, you're killing it? Like, how'd you come? Like, is there like a communication where like you guys would swap ideas or just like hype each other up? Like, I've always kind of wondered that, because I would assume everyone's pretty chill. at least everyone we've met in the industry is pretty chill and you know, friends in the industry, and y'all hang out after cons and dinner and drinks, that kind of thing. So like, how does that kind of communicate work?
I mean, when I started out in comics, I met Rom, Alex Packnadell, and Ryan O'Sullivan were three of the other writers that I met very early on, and the four of us kind of realized we had similar kind of ambitions and similar approaches to how we wanted to do things in comics. So we kind of formalized it a little bit into White Noise, which we've always called our writers studio, but it's really a group chat, but it's done very well for us in that you know, we've like people sort of think of us in the same breath, and but that's still a very active thing. Like we had a Zoom catch up on Tuesday,
Nice.
and we still talk all the time. Like everyone's busier now than they were when we started. But yeah, and like particularly if someone's got an issue they're proud of, you know, before it goes to print, they'll just drop it in the chat and be like, guys, look what I made.
Wow.
Or like cool covers or anything we get. So it's hyping each other up. It's a bit of friendly competition, like all that kind of stuff.
That's fucking cool.
So that's been a cool unit to have around me, and has definitely helped push me to where I am.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, like most of those guys, they're a little bit older than me as well. So that's sort of my industry big brothers as well.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome, and that's really great to hear. I always kind of wondered about that. But Leo, you said you had something?
Well, I was going to say, you know, speaking of detective stories, you know, hopefully I'm not jumping the gun on this, but Batman Dark Patterns, I have to say, I'm a huge Batman fan. This is a breath of fresh air. I absolutely loved all three so far, and I, you know, I thought this was going to be like a mini series, but I didn't realize this is an ongoing series. And you're staying on past the third issue.
It's a maxi series, so it's 12 issues.
12 issues.
12 issues of which it's 4 detective cases, 3 issues per case. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I conceived with our editor Ariana Totoro. We worked together on a few things. We did Arkham City, Order of the World, and Sword of Azrael. So but she was back when I did Lucifer at Vertigo. She ended up as the sort of point editor on that, because we just really gelled, and she really got what I was going for with that book. So we've been kind of always trying to work together ever since then. So we conceived this book as a way to kind of do that. The original plan was that we were going to get 4 different artists. Each case was going to have a different artist. Sorry, frog in my throat. But we reached out we were lucky that we reached out to Hayden Sherman first, and Hayden immediately said, like, can I draw the whole thing? And we were like, absolutely. We just didn't think you'd be available to. But turns out they are an absolute monster who is capable of drawing Dark Patterns and Absolute Wonder Woman at the same time.
Yeah, that's
so
insane.
Yeah, I mean, we had a long lead time on this, you know, so we were able to get quite a lot in the bag. Like, I think Hayden's drawing issue 10 now, and issue 3 has just come out. But is also drawing an issue of Absolute Wonder Woman every month as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't realize they were doing Absolute Wonder Woman. I'm loving that as well. But
yeah,
what I really loved about this is, like, Batman's gotten so convoluted, and I love it that they're going to be rebooting it, this fall. But your story is not a simple story, but it's bringing Batman back to, a true detective story. But he's also acknowledging, all the dangers that are going on with Gotham. I love it where he's saying, there's a fire going out here, and acknowledging these troubles that he really can't focus on. He needs to focus on the larger picture. But your writing is just fabulous, and I love the story so far.
Thank you. Yeah, this is definitely like the book I've wanted to do since I sort of got my hands on Gotham in general. I sort of had a horrifying moment when I was on a panel last New York Comic Con and the sort of Gotham City panel, and I realized that I sort of accidentally became the sort of Gotham veteran in the office right now, and that I've been sort of lurking around there for five-ish years at this point, doing bits and pieces and miniseries and things. This is the book that I think I've always wanted to do with that stuff. This is sort of all of my interests slammed together with Batman, which I think is just there wasn't a book that felt like this currently coming out. So we slipped into that space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This in reading this, this I don't know why, but it gave me a feel of the old Legends of the Dark Knight series, which I absolutely loved as well when it came out in the 90s. Just it's just a real just a real good story that gets to the heart of Batman. And I mentioned Batman's all convoluted now. It's what are your thoughts on Batman and DC, how they're bringing the DC all in books now, and it seems like they're trying to make it easier for readers to get in. Where do you think they're heading with that, and what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think I always find it a sort of a tricky one. I think there are different valid sort of opinions, and I don't know if it's because people's approach to media has changed with the advent of streaming and these kind of things, where people expect to binge stuff from beginning to end, which just wasn't ever a thing before. You'd have some random VHS tape or with episodes 7 and 8 of some show, and you would just watch that over and over because you didn't have access to the rest of it, and you would pick up a random issue 320 of a comic book, and that would be your entry point, and you didn't know everything that was going on. And sometimes that was part of the excitement of that, though. It felt like walking into a real world. Like, I don't know everything that's going on with Martian Manhunter or Spawn or whatever, because I've started this with issue 27, and I don't know if I'm ever going to find issue 28, but the thing that you had was very exciting. So I don't know if that's as feasible now. People expect to start something from the beginning and to have a full-fledged understanding, and to be able to sort of argue with other people about it online and all that kind of stuff. So I think both are valid ways to approach comic books. I also think if the story you're writing doesn't work on its own, if the stakes aren't inherently clear within the single issue that you're making, then you've gone wrong somewhere. You've failed somewhere. You should be able to. You don't need to know who this pink spandex person is who's attacking the main character, but you need to know that it's a problem for them, and generally that should be enough.
Right.
Go for it, Drew.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, when I was reading this, I definitely agree with Leo. This was so great, because to me, this was that early Batman. I felt like this fit right in with Frank Miller, Dave Mazzucchelli's Year One, Long Halloween with Jeff Loeb and the late great Tim Sale. This is an early Batman. He's still kind of getting his hang of things. You know, his relationship is very tentative with the Gotham State Department, and he's still getting the hang of being there. And it's like Leo said, he's aware of these things. And I loved the narration because, and I believe me and Carrie both mentioned this as well. We loved hearing about these little things Batman is aware of. He's like, I can't be everywhere, but just because I can't be there doesn't mean I'm not aware of it. You know, and I know that these are all problems, and I will. It's kind of like I'm putting post-it notes where I'm going to come back to these because this is my city, and I swore to protect it. So that was fantastic. But then, like everything was just great. The pacing, the stories, like even when you introduce this, and is it the Wounded Man or the Wound Man? Does it matter?
I mean, it doesn't matter too much. I've definitely seen people sort of saying both. It's the Wound Man, but that's because it's drawn from a 17th century medical text image, which is
Right.
called the Wound Man.
Okay. Well, I mean, like again, I'm a huge horror movie fan, just like Harry, and I mean the design, just I was like, good. Like you would think in Batman, there's so many characters, there've been so many villains, like there can't be any room for someone new. And then you guys just knock it out of the fucking park with the Wound Man. Like just look at the design. I'm like, this is terrifying.
Well,
You know,
not only the design, but the story behind them that you learn is just horrific. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like again, like even and then what I love is again, and I don't know if this was you or Hayden, what they did is just like the throwbacks. Like even the first panel of the first book where you had the bust with the button to the Batcave. Like I was like, my dad is a classic Batman fan. Like the 60s was his realm. And I saw that. I was like, yo, that's the first image you see. And I was like, wow, that is like, you guys did your homework. So just props.
There's definitely. I think as you go through, you'll see more and more. I think it just amused me to put a bunch of 66 references into the sort of darkest Batman story I could get away with telling. Just because I think it's all part of his genetic makeup. So,
Right.
And it doesn't. None of it necessarily also contradicts itself. The bust is intrinsically gothic, you know, and the sort of like goofiness. I think can be played in a very different way. You can play it for horror rather than
Absolutely.
rather than for yucks.
Yeah,
But-
and
Yeah.
Drew, I was gonna say that was a nice take. You know, where Batman early ages, or early years. I didn't take it as that. You know, I took it as iconic Batman. This kind of story could be thrown anywhere in his career. But I see it.
Yeah, I mean, especially and then again the pepper of like even when the Batmobile, I was like, that's Batman animated series, just icon again. The little details were just fantastic. But I have to ask about the Wound Man. What was the inspiration there? Was it actually like the text that we saw at the end of issue 1, or is that like a love letter to certain horror genres? Is that like equal parts you and Hayden? Is that more him? Like, how did that come about? This villain.
I mean, the idea was mine. Yes, it came from the medical image. I sort of love like sort of the history of medicine because most of it's horrific and terrible, and it's sort of people just like, lopping off legs in theaters and stuff. So I've been sort of staring at the Wound Man for ages and knowing that he would make a really good comic book villain if you just sort of brought him to life. So that was sort of the starting point. And when we knew we were going to do this book and we wanted a mixture of new villains and sort of classic ones. There's one or two sort of classic villains that will crop up. Not the ones you expect. I've seen a few people online sort of saying like, oh, it's clearly building towards the Joker, and I'm just going to go on record here and say it is not in any way, shape, or form. but yeah, I had the Wound Man in my head for ages, and I was like, well, okay, we're doing a new Batman #1, so let's go with a bang and make this character come to life.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, Carrie, go.
Oh, it reminds me of something out of like Hannibal the series. It was just like, okay, we're going to take this, but I mean, like, keeping him alive. Take this person, bedazzle them horrifically in pain and rebar, but in a way that they would still remain alive, and let them go. And it's just like, oh my god. And
Yeah.
the way that it kerflusters, the way that I'm feeling really old right now because we
You're
got
doing
these
fine.
two youngins down below us here. But no, that it kills me how Batman is thrown off because he's like, I can't hit you anywhere because I don't want to kill you. And like he's wearing an Batman proof armor, basically. Nobody else is going to mind because of how grotesque and just horrific this character is, but he's just like, I can't kill this guy, so I can't touch him because anything I do is going to cause him harm. So that was just brilliant. And I like the study of the older medical stuff as well. So just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Thank you. Yeah, he's definitely a Batman specific villain. Like if he sort of runs up against Red Hood or Midnighter, he's not going to last very long.
oh no. But and then there was one image. Leo, if you could bring up the third image of the Batman Panners.
Yeah,
sorry.
give me a second.
Thank you. Because there was this one moment that I can't remember what the issue. It's the one where he's talking to the detective in his office. The man's eating donuts while he's talking. It was just he had this great monologue about Batman and Gotham and mythology, and I was like, God, this is so worth it. Yeah, this one right here, and I just the dialogue was just fantastic because Batman is always considered like more of an urban legend. So you have, he's talking about how people are like, oh, you're a vampire from Eastern Europe. And, he's talking about the city built on a foundation of myth. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, what a great way to like think about not just Batman, but also Batman as in relation to Gotham, that in a way, the Batman and even his rogues become their own mythological creatures. They're part of the tapestry of this city, which is both famous and infamous at the same time. So I just that was fantastic. And then, of course, also you have this nice 1920s detective, not even detective, reporter in his office.
Journalist, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I was like, again, just wonderful. Just wanted to point that out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is very much the sort of me throwing all my preoccupations into Batman. I find sort of psychogeography and those sort of concepts very interesting. I went to the same school as, not at the same time, but I went to the same school as like Peter Ackroyd and was very influenced by him. Still am very influenced by him. He wrote, he wrote like the biography of London and a lot of fantastic biographies and a wonderful novel called Hawksmoor, which really sort of is one of my foundational texts, which is a very sort of psychogeographic novel about London and its history, and I think was a big influence on like From Hell and things like that. So yeah, this definitely came out of thinking about why, and you'll get debate within comic book writers about why anyone is willing to live in Gotham when all these horrendous things, you're just like, you might not get to work because Mr. Freeze is robbing a bank or whatever, and your sort of mortality rate is pretty high. And I remember sort of talking to James Tinian about this like ages ago, like years ago, when he was still doing Bat stuff. And his sort of take was that Gotham had to be so cool that people were willing to take the risk. And my take's kind of the opposite, which is that it has to be such a sort of desperate early era sort of New York, where people have come here to try and find a better life and are pretty much trapped. There's no real escape. It's a black hole that once you're there, you can't really get out of.
Yeah.
So this was me trying to sort of pour that into a monologue.
Oh no, it's beautiful. And then Leo, if you can show the next image. And then this was just a mix of, again, like you said, these little notates of crime, but then the dazzling. And it's funny because we were talking to somebody who he's a longtime inker in the industry, and he was just saying that he liked working with certain books, but he's just like he dreads. I think it was inking City because it's just so much, but just the attention to detail here. I mean, that plus what you were describing. And Carrie, if I'm correct, this is one of your favorites, right?
Yeah, I really like this panel and the stories going on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wonderful page of art. Hayden, you can feel that Hayden loves doing these rather than dreads them, which is great for me because it means I can just keep bloody writing them. It's just another big city shot. I try and get as many of them in now, and we've got some sort of like twists on it coming up as well because I know they enjoy doing them. So there are certain things you'll sometimes hold back on because you don't want to kill your artist and you don't want them to kill you.
Yes.
But with Hayden, it's been one of my absolute favorite collaborations because they also don't need to frame it like that. They don't need to make it that expansive and that beautiful, but they absolutely want to.
Yeah. And then even the if you Leo, the last image, which is as you were talking, Leo, the part of the wounded man's origin. I mean, this was devastating. But again, I didn't want to show everything because I want people to read this and really, but just like you guys summarize in a flashback this character's origin story, and good fucking God, I think it was like 3-4 pages. You guys are having Batman tell, if somebody the real criminal of the overarching story, what happened to this man, and then just again these images just at the end, I was like, good God. And I was just imagining, I was like, man, if this was like ever brought to life, this would be horrifyingly great.
Oh,
just yeah.
And the description of definitely don't want to spoil it. The description of
the events,
what happened to that person. Very gruesome and just very like you can picture as you're reading it, like holy crap, that must have been so painful. Well, not to be obvious.
Yeah.
Also need to shout out Triona Farrell, our colorist, on this page. Just fantastic choices, fantastic work. Her and Hayden have been such a good team. We the first things that the three of us did together was a couple of backups for Detective Comics when Ram was writing that, and seeing the two of them collaborate, we Ariana and I were like, oh yeah, absolutely, this is the team for the book. But yeah, on the other thing saying about sort of describing the things and how horrific they are and taking 3 or 4 pages to do that, I think that's sometimes a good. It's a thing I enjoy about comics and going back to what makes them a joy in the first place and what makes these stories a joy in the first place is the wonder and the sort of horror of it that sometimes we gloss over because we get so used to the tropes. Like I always think like it should be a big deal when Superman steps off a roof and flies away. Like that should still have wonder to it. Like the people in the city should still be like looking up and going, Jesus Christ, like how is he doing that? Like but that can get kind of lost when you're spending 30 issues in space fighting Brainiac.
Right.
And similarly with the sort of horror of a lot of Batman's rogues, it can be something that's easy to sort of glaze over these things that actually happen to them. So
yeah,
I wanted to sort of slow that down and go like, okay, what's it actually like to go through transformation like this, or what's it actually like to suffer the way people in Gotham suffer.
Absolutely. And then correct me if I'm wrong, because I think we're going to switch subjects in a minute. But the next arc, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are taking an interesting take. You're going to be doing Scarface, right? Oh
Yep.
my God. The one thing I just have to ask is, and just out of curiosity, because I know it's part of the character, and I always love this. Are you sticking to Scarface that he still can't pronounce B's? So everything is
Yeah. I don't mind saying that. Yeah.
yeah.
It's part of the fun.
Yeah, because I remember when I was reading that as a kid, and they were like, Wesker can do all these things, but he can't pronounce beats. So, he's dealing with it. So, Gatman and Rogan, and I was like, I'm done. Like you have a spare personality in a puppet. Mine and I not be haunted. Jury's still out, but you can't pronounce bees. I'm like, well played, DC. Well played. You just So I was like, man, if that's true, that's going to be fucking funny. So, spoilers, everybody. Gatman and Rogan making the appearance. I mean, correction, Gatman. There's no Robin yet.
No
Good.
Robin yet.
Not
But
yet.
we're doing something different with Scarface though. I think it's
Oh,
going to be
sweet.
similarly
All right. Nice, Carrie.
similarly
Do you
strange.
want to do you want to talk about the creature? Because
I actually wanted to stick with where we were for just one more second.
okay, sure.
Um,
No.
just as a storyteller, so welcome to our show. We're going to sit here and praise you a lot. This is what we do.
Thank you. I'm a
But
writer. It's what feeds us.
God
yeah,
damn it. That's crooked.
I got a couple of stories out there, but but doing the storytelling and like I'd mentioned how you collaborate with other writers as well, but when you were talking about how close the team was on this, being able to focus on not just the story that you're telling, but the artwork to go with it to enhance it, and all of the coloring and the inking and everything, it's just I haven't had a chance to experience something like that before. I write by myself and do that, but how much fun do you have putting together and getting just like the perfect team of people to work on each project? Because different stories require different perspectives and stuff. So as the writer and the drive behind things, or I think of the driver behind it all, how is assembling teams for you? Or
Yeah, it's a funny one because sometimes you are, and sometimes you aren't, and you can get lucky or not, because if you're working for big companies, they'll quite, the editorial staff will quite often assemble the team, and you can get brought on um later in the process, or earlier. But when you have a team that sings, it's just the best. And a lot of those I have found through being suggested by editors. So like the Fumara brothers I worked with on Lucifer for like 2 years, and they just knocked everything out of the park. And Hayden was suggested by Ariana for the tech backups originally, and we just absolutely got each other from the get-go. And sometimes, especially like if you're going somewhere like Image, like Caspar Wijngaard and I took our first book there ourselves, and we had become friends before we'd started working together, and that's a different dynamic, but it also just really works. It's like playing in different bands a lot of the time.
and then another thing I wanted to ask as far as collaborations went with the Night Terror stuff. Um, that was huge. Just so many different stories covering. So, did you guys all have like a collective Bible that you were working out of and then and this story's going to go this way, and you all plan out how things are going, or were you kind of given a directive of A and B have to happen in your issue, write them however you want, but they have to end up there? If
I mean,
that's making sense.
I didn't, because I was doing the Detective Comics issues. I think some of the quote unquote sort of core titles, like I think there were specific things that probably like Batman had to do and stuff like that, which was okay because that was being written by Josh Williamson, who was writing Night Terrors. So I think he was able to collaborate with himself pretty easily on that one. I was kind of given relative free reign within the framework. I was sent Josh's sort of main Bible document, but then I also just Josh is a fantastic collaborator. I'd worked with him on a few DC things before that I'd contributed for, and then we've done the Energon stuff at Skybound, while he was doing all the G.I. Joe stuff, and I write Destro, because they always give me the villain. So I was able to just reach out to him on Night Terrors and just go like, "Hey, does this work? Is any of this a pain in the ass for you? What I'm planning to do, or is there anything that you could suggest that might just like tie it in a little tighter to what you're doing?" So really, I was just able to write a story about Jim Gordon's nightmare and do what I wanted with it.
It was one of my favorites. Just seeing, I love the whole tie-in together with seeing all the different people's nightmares and how they go through, and how often you don't get John D as often as we really want to. I don't, anyway. And Dead Man, and like it's just like, oh, beautiful.
Yep.
So, sorry. Anyway, going off to my corner now. I just like I pop up, have a question, and then
It's fine, Carrie. Don't worry. You did good. Kind of because you mentioned Skybound, I definitely wanted to ask about the Creature from the Black Lagoon lives. This the kind of sequel you and Ram did to the Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is interesting because you have this entity, which is a classic monster. In doing it, you're doing a sequel, but like, what is the challenges of kind of picking up from something like that? Because before it was just you had Jim Tynion did Dracula, which is great, absolutely wonderful. But you have this, and then following you guys doing this, then you had Michael Walsh's Frankenstein. So what, in terms of it, what were the challenges that you guys felt that you had, and how did you and Ram with your collaborative team, like what was the goal?
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting one because Ram was originally doing it himself, and then he signed his DC exclusive, so he kind of wasn't able to carry on with it. But he sort of came to me, and I'd worked with the editor, Alex Anton at Skybound, who he had been at DC before. So he actually gave me my first ever superhero one shot, which was an Ocean Master Year of the Villain comic. So I already knew the editor, and Ram was meant to be doing it. So Ram just came to me and said, like, "Hey, we've got this outline approved. I can't write it, but you're a horror guy. You're a classic monsters guy. Is this something you'd be interested in at all?" And I very much was. Like, I thought the Dracula was phenomenal as well. James and Martin Simmons, like that was a hell of a team. But the challenge with the creature, and Ram had gone some way to solving this in his outline, I think, but it was a sort of continuing one, is we don't know what he wants or what he is. And once you start trying to solve those problems, you kind of ruin him. If it's the funny thing about certain sort of like cryptids, which is like Bigfoot or whatever. Like if we found Bigfoot, it wouldn't be very exciting. It's a big monkey. Like like it's not like the Jersey Devil or chupacabra or something, where it's like, oh, this changes our understanding of the world. It's just a big monkey.
Well,
So the creature he's a fish man. So if you take away the mystery from that, from what he is, and you start just going, okay, well, here are his origins. He was born here, and here's his, like, mother's maiden name and his
right.
social security number. Like, you're not going to have much of a story there. You're going to sort of take away the murkiness, which is kind of core to the character. But
Right.
character motivations are really what any story's about. So that was definitely the challenge with this book.
Absolutely.
You don't want to write a creature book that doesn't have enough creature in it, but you also need to kind of use the creature itself as a mirror to where that, at least this was our approach, and our
Yeah.
solution to this problem is he has to be a thing which different characters are projecting onto. There are
Oh, yeah.
things they want that they think the creature is the solution to.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because, like, again, well, first thing, my dad was a Universal Monsters fan, so seeing something like this, I was like, wow, what a great kind of tribute to the original, like this image here, where we have the classic bikini and then the monster in the depths reaching upward. I was like, what a subtle but beautiful homage. And then you have, like you said, where the creature is a character in it, but he's not the main focus. It's not just you guys repeating what was already done. It's about a different story in his story is not the right word, but it's a different chapter in his story. But it's really more about the Leo. If you can go to the first image, please. It's about this woman's struggle. She's dealt with a really horrific trauma, and she's trying to find closure and also revenge. And that's a very common thing, because you have her here, and then you have, next panel, you have her talking to the creature, and then further down you have all these other characters who are looking for something else. And then even at this end, which, by the way, this was fantastic, you had this character, which, correct me if I'm wrong, from the original, who Dr. I think it's Tomasin, or something like that. The creature is he's Ahab, and this is his Moby Dick. This is his white whale. And he gets to the point where, but he, like you said, he realizes the thing is, he's not, it's himself, like the creature, and he's made his entire life hunting this thing, but he realizes, now I've wasted everything, because you're just the creature. You're not a monster. Well, you're a monster, but you're not this big evil thing. You're just living your life, man. You're just doing your thing, and you just you're me. That mirror moment, and this was just heartbreaking. I was almost sad that what happens at the bottom happens. I was like, oh, I was like, yep. Would it be a movie if we didn't have some unexpected twists?
Yeah,
But just,
it's a horror story at the end of the day. I'm never a fan of pulling a punch.
no, yeah. I think the one I felt the worst for was that kid who was just bleeding to death outside the cave. I was like, oh man, no one's coming to, and then I'm like, and too late. I was like, oh boy, poor. I was like, oh, I liked you. You were actually a decent person, but those are always the first to go in a horror movie. The good one.
He made it to the end, but
Yeah.
maybe not past it.
Nope. But no, but this was fantastic. So I just wanted to just point all those
Thank you.
wonderful beats out. Carrie, you also read this with me, and I know you're a horror fan. So did you have any thoughts?
I think you pretty much covered everything.
God damn, I'm sorry,
I
Carrie.
loved
I
it.
didn't mean to do that.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
No, I've loved what they've been doing with the new Universal Monsters things as well. We've read all of them so far. Michael Walsh killed it too.
Mhm.
So they've been picking the best of the best out of you guys to get them out there. And Yeah, there's actually, this is a weird thing, but the Lincoln, Nebraska cryptid, at least that the Lincoln, Nebraska subreddit cryptid is the Lincoln Fishman, or the Holmes Lake Fishman, because his origin story is that somebody was really high and was walking around Holmes Lake and swears to God that they saw a fish man walking around and going into the water and just walking beneath it and then coming out and wandering around. And so for the past like three or 4 years now, whenever something happens, it's like, oh, it's the fish man. He had to come back out again.
Oh, so this is a recent one. That's
Yeah.
interesting. It's like I think it's fun, or it's interesting, and this kind of goes back to the sort of stuff. Um, I think we're exploring in Dark Patterns at least somewhat, which is how these sort of urban myths or just straight up myths are. They are storytelling as sort of cultural warning, because there's so many cultures that have these sort of like fish people as um you've got the sort of kappa in Japan, and then you've got the like in England we have Jenny Greenteeth,
Right.
and then there's like the Selkie, and there's like dozens of these
Kelpies.
things, and but really there's it's an easier way to tell children don't go near the body of water unattended, because telling them you might slip in and drown and there are currents and things, kids don't understand that. If you tell them there's a woman with green teeth who's going to come out and eat you, that has a little more
No,
resonance.
yep. No, I'm not going in the water now, so thank you, because I don't need that in my life. Definitely not swimming out to international now, I'll tell you that. Um, but no, I think you're right. I think it's just, I think people don't realize that as a culture, we we're characters of stories, and we always create, like, again, back in ancient civilizations, mythology was a way of explaining the world. As like, oh, this is because this is it was a way of rationalizing the unknown. So even in this day and age when we have so much, we're still doing it. Even in America, which is still pretty new compared to civilizations or countries that are thousands of years. We even have our own myth. We have our own myths. They might not be as extensive as other cultures, but they're still prevalent. So, like you said, it's just our way of explaining the world. Although I have to say, Gary, I have no idea what the moral is of a Nebraskan fishman. I was like, just don't go near the lake at night in Nebraska. Like, is that the moral of that story? I don't know. I've never been.
Pretty much. Or
Yeah.
if anything's going on over in the Holmes Lake neighborhood, Fishman's
Yes.
getting upset.
Yeah.
He's wandering. Leave him a bag of weed. He'll be
Boom.
okay.
Yeah. Just to give
Maybe some
give the
beers.
fishman. Just give the fishman some fish food. Maybe
Offerings.
yeah. Just give him a 7-Eleven slushy and then call it a day. Boom. Offering made.
Just throw bread in like a duck.
There we go. There you go. All right. I'll come back later. Okay. No.
I have seen the weirdest stuff though at Holmes Lake where this happens. Like, have you ever seen a dragonfly chase off birds?
I'm sorry. What?
Okay, birds fly, or and they'll like
Yeah. Yeah.
swoop down
Yeah.
and eat dragonflies. The dragonflies at Holmes Lake will actually chase off the birds that are swooping down to try to eat them. They will aggressively attack, and like a bird will be swooping, and all of a sudden there'll just be like this attack dragonfly that will go straight at it, and just like the bird will, yeah.
Yeah. Carrie, I think what you're describing to me sounds like some sort of danger zone, like some miniature Savage Land level place. So I would just stay
no.
away.
There's a miniature Khaleesi there, and then she's like controlling all the dragonflies.
No, Leo. What I'm hearing is that we need to avoid this place because it sounds like nature is fighting back. So, Carrie, just stay home for now. Just don't go outside. This is what I'm hearing. Fishmen, aggressive dragonflies. Dan's talking about Bigfoot. I mean, next thing you didn't tell me there's a Nebraskan Nessie, and then I'm done.
No, but there are a lot of really aggressive turkeys.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like, where do you live? The Nebraska version of Erie, Indiana? God damn, woman.
Uh,
Like,
no, we're just they feed the turkeys on the gravel road that you can take a back road to my
no, no.
mom's place, and there's like probably about 15 of them, and like 10 of them are toms. And so as you're driving up the road now, you go slow so you don't hit the turkeys. They will start running and chasing and attacking your car
This
because
is like that. What was it that one time we were talking about? Like that those migration of tarantulas. Do you remember that?
Philip Kennedy Johnson told us about that. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm still terrified. Like I told him, wherever that is, you
that's
need to
down
tell
in
me
the
so I will never
Ozarks.
go there. Yeah, cool. Not going there. Horror. But what? Moving on. No. We have our guest here. He doesn't need to hear the idiosyncrasies of American civilization, aka where you don't need to go.
I do need to know that these days, and
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I will be asking Philip more about that. I'll tell you that.
please do. Because when he told me you could like in the interview, I'm just physically reclining into my clothes. I'm like,
Wait,
nope.
no. I lied.
And then
That wasn't Philip. That was Cullen.
oh, that was Cullen Bunn. Right. Sorry.
Cullen.
That
Yeah.
was, yeah, sorry, right, sorry. Philip probably would have similarly creepy stories. You can't write that many issues of Incredible Hulk and put yeah, you can't write that without knowing some scary shit, my man. Um, but one, by the way, Dan, one that I want to talk about, I read the first volume of Homesick Pilots, and I have so many things to say. One, I'm gonna read the rest of it. It was fantastic. Um, yeah, and I brought up some things because I'm a Supernatural fan, and I have to ask, reading it, this thing felt to me like Power Rangers meets The Shining meets 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo, which was just fantastic because like no, because in the first arc you have this girl that's tasked with collecting the ghosts, and she's it was like, oh, I'm just like, what the like that's where the 13 I'm like, she's like, what was it, the horseshoe ghost? Leo, if you could bring up some of the images, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, this, I completely forgot the significance of the horseshoe. So this exposition, while this woman is doing her makeup, is just fantastic. And then the next image, Leo, and then the entity itself, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, especially with the grinning, and I was like, nope, nope. So, and then even the next one, where you see more of these entities, I was like, yo, this is on some 13 ghosts level weirdness here. You got childhood transformer dead ghost. You've got your standard hangman zombie. You've got workout exercise bimbo lamp. I was just like, my God, like just that. And then the one that I will say fucked me up a little bit was Leo. Next one, please. Was I'm a huge video person. So, and Carrie was like, what cassette mummy is this? Like, I was like, yeah. But then I was like, I will never rewind a VHS ever again. Um, and it was just like, you had so much going on. Like, please, like, how did this come about? How, like that. And then your love for the punk rock music was also, I'm a mid-level punk rock fan myself. So I was like, I have friends I'm going to recommend this to. I feel like
Oh, thank
this
you.
is
Yeah,
about me. So,
it's always appreciated. Yeah, I mean, this book was so. Caspar Wijngaard and I have been friends forever by this point. We did our first book together at Image, which is a book called Limbo back in, I think we started it in 2014, and we were just kind of nobodies, and he'd I'd wanted to write comics for a while. I was still at university. Caspar had been sort of taking his portfolio around conventions and stuff, and
mhm.
working his own stuff, and we became good friends. We realized we had a similar sort of um, interests, and we enjoyed talking stories. So we decided to put something together and take it to Image, and we were lucky enough that they took a chance on us. That book I'm still very proud of. A book called Limbo, which you know, definitely feels like my like a first book when I look back at it. But I think I was lucky enough to be working with Caspar, and we had a sort of a story we wanted to tell. So I was able to sort of get away with that, and really all of the work I started getting afterwards was because of that book. That was, you know, very much a calling card. So sort of we both went off and did other stuff. He was doing a lot of Star Wars comics, and I was doing Lucifer, and we sort of built a bit of a name for ourselves separately, and decided we wanted to come back together and have another punt at doing a create our own thing at Image, which initially was going to be a Limbo sequel. That was a very 80s sort of surrealist thing. But we stumbled across these sort of punk kid characters that were going to be the focus of the detective story that our detective from Limbo had gotten wrapped up in, and then we realized we were more interested in these kids than we were in the limbo-ness of it. So we both have this love for sort of 90s kitsch and strangeness, and we decided to throw all of that into the same place. 90s, you know, we'll always get together and like have some beers, and we'll end up watching like Guyver or 13 Ghosts, or you know, more recently, you know, sort of other sort of throwback stuff like Mandy or whatever. Both huge sort of Hellraiser fans, and Stuart Gordon, and like all of that kind of stuff. So this was our sort of love letter to all of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, but like again, I just thoroughly love like the attention to detail and whatnot. And it was also funny because if Leo, if you can get to the last image, if you wouldn't mind. The last one. There's one of that. This to me, like the giant battle, like I'm a kaiju fan, but I also grew up in the 90s. So this had like a kind of Power Rangers feel to it. And I was just like, I was watching, I was like, what the fuck? Because I just thought, especially Power Rangers, because you have this entity being controlled by one of the main characters, and then you have this other ghost that is somehow more OP than you'd ever think. They're just duking it out, and then you just have the people of the town watching, like, yeah, this is happening. There's two giant creatures fighting it out, palm trees, and you're just like, am I still drunk? Am I like this what? So I mean, are you and your collaborator, are you guys like monster movie fans? Like this is some
yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I was like, especially because the horseshoe character, I was like, man, you are a crappy Zordon. You're not doing shit for these kids. Like, you are not training.
He is a crappy Zordon, man.
He is.
If you get to the end of the book, it's 3 volumes, which felt like we in the sort of shape of the comic market. And we managed to launch this book straight into COVID, which was unfortunate. So getting to 3 volumes felt like we were getting away with something. Yeah. But by the time you get to the end of that, you'll realize he's an extremely crappy Zordon.
Yeah, I was just like, what do we do? Run. I'm like, okay, good. We're gonna run from this thing. But this was just so much fun. And like I said, I only read the first volume, but I was like, well, this is gonna be high on my queue today. Because this was just, oh yeah, absolutely. And I have a bunch of friends who are comic fans who are also in the punk scene. I was like, do I have a book for book week for you? Please read this. Support great creators, please. But this was just fantastic, and I wanted to bring it up. Carrie, Leo, I don't if you guys got a chance to read this, but I recommend it. It's all sorts of weird, but it's just great.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read it. I definitely want to check it out though. I could just imagine though the size of the horse that horseshoe came from. Like,
God damn it, Leo! It's the ghost in the horseshoe, Leo. God,
but the horseshoe, like, that had to come from a horse. That big.
Oh my God! Shut up! Just stop. Love you. Stop, please.
And the VHS mummy, like, is this the creature that came to you when you didn't rewind at Blockbuster?
I mean, this is all Caspar as well, so you'd have to ask him. Like, collaborating with Caspar is always the sort of thing where you just sort of point him in a direction, and he will
You just go.
Yeah, he will just go. He's one of my favorite people in comics, and he's doing the power fantasy now with Kieran Gillen, so he's definitely lost to me for the foreseeable as a collaborator, but he's doing incredible work on that book. That book is so cool.
Yeah,
one of those books that makes you want to up your game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
Nice.
no, but like I said, and I loved seeing the different ghosts. Like again, I'm a huge 13 Ghost remake fan. So seeing that, I was like, wow, this, and I was like, man, I want to know more about the ghosts. And I'm like, I gotta keep reading. Like you guys just flip the haunted house motif so well. And I was just like, this is a fucking crazy book. And I'm like, sold, let's go. Like, so just kudos.
I mean, the whole core story came from like, there was a couple of things, like I'd watched a couple of ghost story, like ghost movies,
Mhm.
around the time we were like conceiving that, and a few where they'd sort of gone for the happy-ish ending kind of thing, which I think
Yeah.
comes from a sort of certain kind of screenwriter brain where you're trying to solve the problem by the end, or sort of solve a character's trauma. And haunted house is quite often a trauma metaphor, but
Well,
that's not. I don't think that's how it works. Like, I don't think you can. You don't just beat the ghost and confront your past, and because you've confronted it, like you've solved it.
yeah.
It doesn't go away. So the sort of idea that sparked all of this was like, well, what if you try to leave the haunted house and it just comes with you, and it just stands up and walks with you? So, and that led us to haunted house Mecca.
Well, and I so agree with that because I feel like that's also been a very common trope in horror. Is I feel like even if you win, you don't win. It's kind of like the ending of Evil Dead. Ash beat everybody, but the thing still came from him at the end. So yeah, you were victorious, but you still lost. Or even then, like you're still haunted by the trauma. And I also agree with that being in terms of supernatural. I feel like people don't understand. They're like, yeah, you left, but did you leave yourself or did something follow you? Because that shit can happen. And people always think like, oh yeah, I just went to a haunted house with a Ouija board and then wow, it was such a crazy night. I'm like, I just want to ask you a question. The things that happened, did something feel a little off when you got home? And they're like, yeah, a little. And I'm like, yeah, you brought something with you. I was like, congratulations, you have what we call a supernatural STD. A ghost went home with you. Have fun. And
I
then it
mean,
was like,
yeah,
why?
I think the reason the more recent Evil Dead movies as well have been so good is you are. It's not the only reason they've just been very good, but
Right.
they are. Every one of them feels like you're just like watching the beginning of the apocalypse, because the genie is not going back in the bottle,
No.
in any of their stories.
Absolutely. So that's all I had. Carrie, Leo, do you got anything else?
Well, okay. This is something that I have to ask every horror writer. Are you a part of the super secret horror comic book writers Tiki Club?
No, I don't know what that is. Like, evidently not.
Carrie, go.
Okay. Would you like to be? If we're opportunity.
Oh my
Feels
God.
like a leading question, because I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
Oh,
Carrie, here we're talking about horror movies. You're asking a question. This feels like if you tell him to sign on the dotted line, he might not.
oh no,
Do I
yeah,
have to sign
it's
in
no,
blood,
it's
or
No. Carrie, explain.
then I'm out?
well, I just noticed that there were a bunch of different people in the horror comic industry that are all also very into tiki, and so I started asking different people, and it's a toss up on whether it exists or not, and if it exists, if there are different levels or not, and who runs it and who does what. And so I've been trying to organize, and like I ask all of my comic horror people, if you're a part of it, because I don't know if it's just like in my head as a conspiracy, or you know or if it's actually out there, because I copy, like some people are like, how'd you know? Oh, wait, and like they lead me on, or some people flat out deny it, like Brian Azrael is just like, that's not a thing. Like, oh, but
Yeah,
it could be.
they'll deny, but then they bring out a tiki mug and start drinking from it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
they taught me.
Well, I don't have one, so I'm definitely not. I'm definitely out in the cold.
Oh, okay.
For now.
Maybe I've insulted Brian at some point. I don't
No,
know.
no, no. Well, it's funny because like it started with Jason Aaron, and
It started
then
with Cullen Bunn on his Discord, and then
right.
So
kind of
Cullen is the master now.
yeah. It like Dan, you understand? Like Carrie is like trying to Watergate this thing. She's like, this is the comic book secret, and she every time it's been Jason Aaron, Brian Azzarello, Fred Van Lent, Cullen twice, and then you, and I'm just like I feel like Carrie, I feel like this is your fetch, man. Stop trying to make the horror tiki club work. And then before I know it, they're just sipping tiki clubs from the deck and just good. No one suspects why we are trying to mechanize the horror. I'm like, it would just be my luck, Gary. But it's you and your tiki conspiracies, Carrie.
I mean, there could be worse things.
That's true.
Than a bunch of horror writers hanging out, drinking tiki together.
Yeah, swapping horror stories. That's a lot of fake blood.
I've been listening to a podcast the last few days about this guy in the 80s who worked at I think it was an Air Force base. I'm gonna get all the facts wrong now, but basically he sort of went to his bosses and was like, "Oh, I think we have UFOs. I think there are UFOs appearing," and basically what he'd seen was like experimental aircraft they didn't want him to know about. So the US government gaslit him into thinking he'd been seeing UFOs and was involved in this big conspiracy. I just bring this up because like maybe this horror tiki club is trying to hide something far darker from you.
Oh my God, Carrie, you're being gaslit by horror writers. That's a lot of vapor, man. That's a lot of fog coming in there. Oh boy. I do not know shit. I do not know anything. This glass is empty. Leo, did you have anything?
Well, just I know we are at time, but Dan, what do you, besides writing awesome comics, what do you dork out about? Like, what is your downtime? You just put on cheesy movies. You collect anything. You build models.
Collect great artwork.
Not really any of that. Like I have some like wonderful original art, but it's mostly been sent to me, very kindly by collaborators. Dani's a sweetheart. She always sends me original art from things we work on. But I'm always scared of getting into collecting anything because I know I'll get in too deep. So I sort of avoided vinyl and all that kind of stuff because I just know it was going to become a problem. Yeah, horror was kind of my into nerdum in the first place, which is probably like pretty apparent once I start talking. I'm a big reader. I love to read. Horror movies, detective shows is a big one as well. We recently got BritBox, and we've just been like burning through a load of British detective shows. They're like, BritBox being the sort of British streaming service, and 75% of it is detective stories because the Brits just love
They do.
Just love a detective story. We just love a grisly murder in a lovely little countryside cottage.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of that. I guess like geekdom aside, that's kind of more my jam.
Hey, listen, we Americans love SVU and Law and Order. I mean, how much more crime is there in New York? But yet there's more every year, so we get it, man. So how many little villages can they have grisly murders? Apparently, a lot in Britain. So
yeah, I don't know why anyone's talk about Gotham. I don't know why anyone's moving to where Miss Marple operates out of or Father Brown, because that parish is like, it's just one big graveyard at this point.
Absolutely. I did one other question. You've been in comics for a bit. You've gone to cons and whatnot. Has there been anybody that you met at a convention that was like you had your fanboy moment? You're like, oh my God, that you had to meet, and it was just like, wow.
I feel like early on that was like very exciting. Just when you started to feel sort of legitimized so I'll always shout out Declan Shalvey for that. When Caspar and I made Limbo, Declan was the guy who no one knew who we were. No one had any idea what we were doing, and when we would just sort of be like lingering around. And Declan was the first person to sort of come over and start a conversation with us and take an interest in us, and convinced Big Bang in Dublin to bring us over for a signing and all that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
So he's an absolute sweetheart. But beyond that, like I've definitely it's been cool having a lot of people who I grew up reading the books of become friends and even collaborators sometimes. I got to do a short with the late great John Paul Leon at DC, and that was like, that's one of those things like no one can ever take that away from me. Like that was an incredible thing to get to do, and like one of the books that I started out, one of the first comics I read where I was like, oh, this is really cool, and I think this could be something I want to do with my career, was Journey into Mystery, Kieran Gillen's like run on that book, where he just did so many sort of cool and smart things with the storytelling there, and now Kieran's a friend, and he's nicked Caspar off me, and all of that, and that was it's a cool job, and it's cool to sort of move in these circles, but also get to the people that I started out with are now all the people that other people are excited about, like Rom and Caspar and Alex, and so I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point, but I'm grateful, and it's a cool thing to get to do.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah. Carrie, did you have anything else?
Nope. I was just curious about the Dikies.
Yeah.
Always gotta ask. There's
That's a
always a
deep conspiracy,
chance.
Well, on that note, I think we should wrap things up. Do you agree, Drew?
Yeah, I think it's about time to let him have the rest of his afternoon. He's probably got some hot writer stuff to do. He's hot off the press. He's the big name. He's probably got Dark Patterns 12 to just put the little tweaks and the little references in. So yeah, we'll
forget Nightwing. We
oh
didn't
yeah, right. Yeah. Fuck, I totally forgot about that shit.
Yeah.
Should we ask about that? I mean, we
Anything
can.
else?
Yeah. Well, actually, I did have one Nightwing question. I mean, you picked up Nightwing following Tom Taylor and Bruno Ronaldo and a bunch of others, which was a great book, and you're doing it. So you're walking into Bloodhaven. You have Nightwing, like following a book. Like what was your approach? I mean, I myself knew of Nightwing. I've read a lot now, so I was like, wow, this is a great character. So like, you have him, you have all the different gangs going on, and just navigating that. Like, what's usually your approach of Nightwing? Do you do like I would kind of pay tribute to what the other guys did, but I'm doing my own thing, or like heck it, I'm just gonna go with my thing? Like, what's been your approach to Nightwing?
I mean, yeah, I was definitely there's a big difference between doing something like Dark Patterns and taking on something like Nightwing. Dark Patterns, we start with an issue 1, and it's like, okay, here's our take on Gotham
Right.
and from scratch. Whereas we took over Nightwing with issue 119. So even though we're definitely going to do our thing and take it our direction, very conscious that it's issue 119, and there are people that have been following it since issue 1, or jumped on when Tom and Bruno started the book, and I don't want to just throw out everything that came before. It's about building on it, and that's part of the joy of having a mythology like that as well. Like it's you want to keep it going, but just twist it in your own direction. And I wasn't too worried about that because I knew that, you know, Tom and I are different. We're just different writers. We're different kinds of writers. So it was going to happen. Regardless, if I tried to do a sort of tribute act, you know, something horrendous was going to happen sooner rather than later. Just in the story, just because that's where my brain would go. So yeah, didn't worry about it too much. The tone of Nightwing has been an interesting thing to sort of develop and pass, and the thing I've sort of really ended up interested in and drilling down into is I think this week, which I only realized a little late, is like the 85th anniversary of the first appearance of Dick Grayson in Detective Comics. And Detective Comics 30, was it 36, something like that. And so this sort of taking on the character when he's really hit this point, and I think that's what Tom and Bruno very did, is take him to this place where he's like very confident in himself and his abilities, and he's kind of out from under the shadow of Batman at this point. But he's got this 85 years of comic stories behind him, and the experience of all of that, and that I find very interesting, and like all of that stuff is there. It's all this layers of sediment which we can drill down into and pull different things out of to tell stories with.
Sure. Oh well, yeah,
And
absolutely.
The Fountain of Youth.
Yeah. What was it, Karen?
I said in the Fountain of Youth. I love how people age in comics. It's, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a strangeness to that, which I sometimes want to, you know, there's a suspension of disbelief thing, but also there's a fun to that as well. There's an uncanniness to it. You know, how has someone had all of these adventures all at once? I think that's something that is kind of like an underlying current in things like All-Star Superman and books like that.
Absolutely. Well, that's pretty much all I had. So I guess, Leo, we should probably wrap it up then.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching. You know, definitely check out our YouTube channel. We got a lot of stuff going on there. You'll, you know, if you missed this episode here, you'll find stuff chopped up here and there. But definitely check the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us, for more information. Especially for Dan, we got a bunch of your links. But where do you like people interacting with you?
I mean, I'm kind of off Twitter and all those sort of things because, you know, I'm pretty anti the destruction of democracy. But I'm on Blue Sky at Dan PG Waters at Blue Sky, whatever. You'll find me. But my favorite place for people to find me is the Dead Air channel, .ghost.io, which is my newsletter, which is also you can just read online, but that's where you'll get the most comprehensive updates and waffles and brain dumps from me. That's where I'm mainly hanging out on the internet these days.
Awesome. And Drew, who do we got coming Tuesday?
hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Dan's still here, so you know, great to have him. But next Tuesday, when you're not enjoying a glass and a smoke, we have the great Keith Williams coming on. We're going to be talking about some of his work. We have a special guest host as well, who's very excited to be with us. So, yeah, Keith Williams is coming on. We're going to talk about a bunch of his projects, and of course, the latest in comic news and Carrie's Kickstarters. So it should be pretty dope. And yeah, stay cool.
Sounds good. And Carrie, where do you like people interacting with you?
Look up Carrie Sanders here over on Facebook. It links to my author page, links to all my other stuff. You'll find me here on Tuesdays with these lovely gents, as well as some Saturdays, as we're getting the international guests going right now. And most of my shows on the Owlite Network are done on Sunday and Monday. They have shows all through the week over there, but those are the ones that I'm generally on. This week on Monday, we're going to be doing on our Tomb of the Terrible class of Nukem High. Oh boy,
Hey.
howdy. I'm excited for that. And on the 16th, I will be on my Clutch of Personalities interviewing horror author Morgan Sylvia. So come and catch that. I'll be giving away some merch for that one. So if somebody wants a copy of the book, you can get a copy of the book.
Cool.
If you're lucky. You got to comment and watch live. So yeah,
Awesome.
so that's me.
Sounds good. Drew, take us out.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us on the Splash Page of the Dorkening. We appreciate it. If you need to talk with me, right down below, Drew Malo, Ghostbusters 1984 on Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky where I've been promoting the event. Thank you to Dan for reposting. We appreciate it. Yep, we're everywhere. I'm very busy. I swear, if you message me, I'll get back to you eventually. I'm just like really tired. Yeah, that's basically it. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday and stay cool.
Awesome. With that, we'll catch you later.